International Women's Day, I mean, it is a day that's been recognised for more than a century now. And a lot of progress has been made in, you know, the fight for women's rights during that time. But, you know, let's be honest, there is still a long way to go. So the murder, for example, of Sarah Everard by the Severn police officer last year reignited debates around women's safety. And in recent figures, they show that the gender pay gap widened during the pandemic, which is not good news, is it? So with all these kind of topics going around, and I feel like there's some conversations that we need to be having. So last week what I did, I met up with a group of women across Teesside, County Durham and North Yorkshire, where we had the space and the time to kind of sit down and have a chat about the equality in the workplace specifically. So take a listen to this. I think it's really fascinating. There's Leslie, she's from Lemon Business Solution Limited, Jo from Active Financial Planners, Claire's from Beyond Housing, Kate from Helen's Residential Limited, and Nikki from HR Today.
We offer a balance by having different thought processes, and the way that we all work together is now creating that equal balance within an organisation. Skills
side of the brain everyone's thinking of, whether you're male or female, I guess, is you know, putting all that together, even at home. I mean, once you learn how each other works and what annoys you, and you overcome that, you can, relationships, friends, family, you know, expand that into the workplace, and you understand how different people think and work, be that male or female, or be it just whether people are programmed in a, you know, a factual, methodical way, or, you know, people would think I'm really disorganised and unorganised if you saw my desk and things, but for me it's organised chaos. So I guess it's learning everyone's ways and taking the best bits from everybody, and jointly that creates hopefully a tool for pushing a company forward, really, because if we were all the same it would be very boring.
I think that's the right thing, because it's actually not even about genders. When you do look at the teams and do those sort of Belbin type analysis, you actually see all the different traits that you have, all the different annoying things that you have, but the strengths and the balance it out, and obviously getting that mix of a team from a gender perspective, but also all the different sort of traits that you have is really beneficial. When we were just talking earlier on, we were talking about how people are careers progression and job roles, and how women have maybe come into certain industries and sectors. I think one of the things that always really interests me, and I suppose having been a woman in construction, it's always that, why would I be attracted into the construction sector? What does that say about me in terms of...
should be the question.
Absolutely. And I think one of the... I suppose I've been involved with a Leeds College of Building for a long time, but part of that is about encouraging women into construction, and really looking at schools and children in terms of how they start to think of themselves in the workplace and what those archetypal careers might be. And I think for me, if there was something that we could do to open up people's thinking about what careers could be, it is actually to say to girls, have you thought about becoming a surveyor? Have you thought about becoming a bricklayer? Or whatever it might happen to be. And I think those positive role models are what's really needed in schools
as well.
School age.
Yeah. I sent an email round all the girls that work for me this morning just to ask them what they thought about this, and the lady who's the engineer on site came back and said she hasn't really seen any sort of discrimination on site. Everyone's, you know, treats her with respect. She said the main thing she would say is that in careers in school, construction was never mentioned to her once, and it was always seen as being laying bricks out on site in the cold and the wind and the rain, and only through her own perseverance did she find out about engineering and following science and maths and all those things, and that's how she's worked really hard to get there. But it just goes back to what you were saying, totally in agreement, that people can't choose what they don't know about.
It's interesting that you talk about your perception of construction, and I think that word perception is the thing that we need to bust that myth. Undoubtedly there are fewer women certainly in the trades in construction, but obviously architects, project managers, engineers, many more opportunities where there are women involved in those sectors. I think it's almost this girls at school will have a perception of being out on site, and to a degree that's that's true. But I also think the construction industry is a brilliant place for women. So much of construction relies upon planning, coordinating, collaborating, organising. To be stereotypical, a lot of the skills that women have, communication skills, multitasking. That's incredibly controversial. Very controversial. But actually, I think it is the perception that's the problem, not that. And I think it's really pleasing that your engineer talked about.
When I started working for the business in 2000, I was always the only female in every meeting I went into. Everyone. And now I'm not.
And was there any bias? Was there any?
With me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Massively. Yeah. When I first started working for the company. Yeah, there was.
And now?
I hope not.
Now there's
certainly not any with me. But no, I emailed everyone today and everyone said that they don't feel any.
Good.
So that's that's good from our point of view.
I think from the female, from starting out, to an extent, yes, I faced that. But I tell you what, I faced far more than actually the gender issue was age. Being relatively young, I actually felt that was worse because, I felt, who's this? You're standing, going into a meeting with people, granted my age now, but when I was that age, and then not necessarily taking you seriously.
Yeah.
So I don't, I think there's a whole host of different reasons, out there, and you just...
I must admit,
stick opinion
on that one, I've got one.
Just one of them.
I've got a funny story on that as well, in the respect of when I was newly qualified as a financial advisor. First meeting, went to take some clients for a conversation, and I asked if they wanted a coffee and tea. I brought the coffee and tea. We sat down for the meeting, and then he said, "Oh, sorry, when's the advisor coming?" And it was age related. I was 22, 23 at the time, so it can happen. On bias things back in the day, I've even been asked, "Here's the job, congratulations, but you're not going to have children in the next few years, are you?" It did happen. Nothing like that happens nowadays, but it did. They wanted to know whether or not you were going to cost them money, basically, in the past. So quite controversial at the time.
We were once taking corporate to a football match at Newcastle, and I really wanted to go. It was a long time ago. It was a Champions League match, and I was like, I really want to go. And the managers at the time said that you can only go if you can stand here and explain the offside rule to us.
I would not want to. I still don't know it now, and I never want to know it on that basis.
I explained it to them. And I walked out. It was a really good match.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I think it is. Early in my career, I worked for a large contractor who I ended up taking to an industrial tribunal for sex discrimination and equal pay. And so I think there are, without really fully understanding things, there are lots of, I'll say at a low level, it's almost the absolute obvious discrimination doesn't happen. It's the indirect discrimination that actually is still there. The thing that I really did misjudge my male colleagues about, because I was site-based at the time, kept things very, very quiet. That you're taking your own organisation to an industrial tribunal isn't something you necessarily might want to talk about widely. And when they did find out, because it was reported in the construction news, my immediate male colleagues were all fantastically supportive, and I thought, I've made a misjudgment, in the other direction, and they were so supportive of me.
So you thought they wouldn't be at all?
I think there was just that unease, the unease at what you were doing, the challenge that you were putting up. And in actual fact, they knew me, they worked with me, they knew I was great at my job, and that they found it. They were indignant on my behalf that I was in this situation I was in. But I think sometimes you have to stand up and be counted a little bit if you think something's not right. And hopefully there will be change, even if you've not benefited from it. There will be some change that will come down the track for other people.
I think what's amazing on listening to all of your stories in such a short period of time, how much we've seen a difference. We're talking years here, we're not talking centuries, and how much that's changed, whether it's sort of male-female discrimination, age. I think the world is changing and we've influenced that and we've been part of that, and I absolutely think it's amazing just listening to what did happen, wouldn't happen today, you know, what you've been through, you won't have children. I think it's fantastic where we've got to, and I think it is an absolute celebration and a pat on the back for everybody in this room and everyone that's contributed towards that.
Yeah, that is a fascinating conversation between some of the brightest business brains in our part of the world. Leslie from Lemon Business Solutions, Joanne from Active Financial Planners, Claire from Beyond Housing, Kate from Helen's Residential Limited, and Nikki from HR Today, having that conversation on International Women's Day. We're here with your BBC Radio Tees. 1:20. Our job at BBC Radio Tees, between 10 and 2, Sian, Linz and myself, it's pretty simple. It's your stories. You know, we love to get out and come and see you. If we can get out and pop and have a sit and have a cup of tea with you, we love to do that. And that's exactly what you've done, Sian. You've been out and about and doing something really special for a very special day today.
I have. So today is International Women's Day. And it's important, isn't it, that we kind of use this day to kind of reflect, to stop, to talk about things, to see where we've come, to see where we need to go. Celebrate.
It's like for me. People say, "Well, we shouldn't. It should be every day." And I get that, but it's like Mother's Day, Father's Day, you know, birthdays. You know, they're just a marker where we can sit and go, right, okay, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
How can we improve? How can we keep going forward?
Absolutely. So that's what I've been doing. So I know throughout the day, it started with Neil this morning, and a little bit earlier on, we've been hearing from a group of amazing women from across Teesside, County Durham and North Yorkshire. And they've been having discussions about different topics, you know, about what International Women's Day means for them, equality in the workplace. And I want you to take a listen to another conversation that they had. Today, this one is about how the pandemic has affected gender equality. So in this, you'll hear from Leslie, who's from Lemon Business Solution Limited, Joe, who's from Active Financial Planners, Claire, who's from Beyond Housing, Kate from Helen's Residential Limited, and Nikki from HR Today.
The reflection of the pandemic is it was shocking for all of us initially, but what we've reflected on it, we work with a lot of male-dominated, and when you get a man ring the office and go, do you know I picked my daughter up for the first time from school, and just that work-life balance, I don't really like that terminology, but that ability for those people to have that permission that they're either at home on furlough or they're working from home and can take half an hour out and nip to school and pick the kids up or drop them off or see them have breakfast. You know what is amazing? They were saying, you know, we've sat and had breakfast this morning. Normally I'm up, I'm out. And, you know, I don't know the positive side of the women in that relationship because we've only seen it from the male side of things. But we had that so much through the pandemic of just flippant comments. They sounded flippant, but they were so important. And as a reflection of what's come out of COVID is we all have a different perception of life and that there is more to it than being at work for long hours and maybe not being as productive, and maybe this hybrid can actually have a place in the coming years in business.
My other half works in the hospitality industry, and I would say the only sad side was that side of this coin, if you like, because he had a lot of cafes, restaurants shut. A lot of his friends, especially the women, rather than being furloughed, were made redundant or had no money, or they were the first to go to look after the children or the sick relative. You know, we do find that in the underpaid jobs, it's the majority, unfortunately, of women because they've chose to have the children and the back in trying to fight for the career. So I do think with positives and negatives, we still have a long way to go.
We've got a long way to go
with the girls to get up there on the career scales.
I think it highlighted the gender inequality really for me, because I was trying to run the business and all the stresses that entailed. We couldn't get into houses, you know, all the things that were going on with the business, but I was making 3 meals a day. My older 2 could do the schoolwork themselves, but I still had to make sure they were doing it. My younger one, I was trying to teach, and I'm really not very good at it. It was hard, and I think lots of my friends were in the same situation, where you were trying to. I think particularly if you've got a senior role, it's difficult at any level, don't get me wrong, but I had to be there for my staff and for my kids, and I just felt guilty the whole time.
Yeah, we've definitely noticed that within our business that actually particularly through those times when children were at home, that it has generally been our female employees that have picked up the burden of that homeschooling. I think women are brilliant at adapting, and I think have really done that well. I would hope that this new hybrid working, so whilst there've been some, maybe, you're talking about gender inequalities being seen through that potentially an approach to a hybrid can actually allow women to step
Awesome.
back, to step back in, and actually that step change that's happened within society can actually be to women's advantage, maybe moving forward.
I agree.
Is that not just what has come out of here as the most positive thing, seeing how you can work differently, and have the hybrid role, as you call it, which is the most fantastic thing I think that you could ever have. In the past we were regimented 9 till 5 maybe, although again Leslie does work 24 hours a day, but from normal though, you would come in, you might not be productive,
but you were here. Flexibility as well, I think, has been
Absolutely
key.
agree.
People could start earlier, finish earlier, and be more productive, where lots of industries were very rigid. You will work these hours, and like you say, may not be productive in that time, but you turned up and you did it. Where now people are realising, a lot of people we spoke to were very much of, actually, once the kids have gone to bed, I can do a few hours then, because I know what needs to be done.
That's why we
and it's how people work.
Because when I talk about women in our company, I think that's got a lot to do with, because our hours have always been flexible in that way. So we had people coming and doing 5 till midnight shifts. This hybrid way of working, in actual fact, we've been doing a long time, which I think is why we have so many women, because actually it does work around families and women, and that's made it accessible for people to carry on or push forward in a career, because a 9 till 5 just does not work with people who have to take the kids to school and pick the kids up and then make the tea. And for us, I guess I haven't seen the impact change as much because we've been working to it.
I don't have a problem with the shifts and being flexible with shifts, and we are very flexible with people around school drop-off or pick-up or things like that. But for me, I just worry that giving women this flexibility that they think they want is actually just manifesting the bias. Because we are just saying, yes, you do have to do it all. And we'll work it out for you. I don't want flexible working. I want to work.
It doesn't suit your business.
It doesn't suit my business. I don't want to do that. I want good childcare. Why does school finish at 3:30 in the afternoon? I think a lot of it is the childcare system is so out of date, and it's just nobody ever thinks of it, of modernising it, of fitting it in so that two parents could work and both pick up kids.
It's not possible for all businesses to be flexible, so I completely support Kate's opinion, because again, I've had it. So we are flexible as a company, but I've had people come and try and dictate what hours they want to work purely so it suits them. Now they're thinking of themselves. That's one person out of a team of 100 employees. Sorry, you can't agree to everyone's demands. It's just not feasible.
And people's change. People, what they want change. It's difficult to manage. And I understand that maybe flexible working does work for some people, but for me, I've tried it and it just caused me a lot of stress because I was just rushing from one place to another, and the kids are still to pick up. And it's not just kids, is it? But I think we're all getting to an age probably where our parents need more support as well. That needs to change so that it's not just the women responsibility.
I do think that actually there has been a step change in people's thinking and men's thinking, and also maybe women's thinking about what their partners should be able to ask for, and maybe the whole thinking of, I suppose, the gender stereotypes has been reevaluated and looked at a little bit. Certainly for my team, my organisation, it's brought us closer in those ways, because you're actually, you are au fait with the kids, the pets, the everything that's going on, people's real lives, and how that impacts on the work life. But genuinely, you're there with the whole person, not just the 9 to 5 person.
During the pandemic, for some families, maybe did the men see actually what was involved somewhat more than maybe they did before? And again, that's not a negative, but sometimes rushing, around trying to do the tea, trying to take to clubs and check homework's done and wash PE kits and all the rest of it. It's.
But do you think they enjoyed it as well? They had an opportunity to do something they'd never done. They'd never had the opportunity.
It brought something forward that hadn't been experienced, and therefore actually thought, I want to carry on doing. Just
Don't
a
put
thought,
this in, but my husband didn't. He's out of there like a shot.
I do agree that we've moved forward. What a massive change, though. I would have been scared to even have time off. Never mind.
I think
the
it was
men.
a shame it had to be forced.
Correct.
But if that's what it took,
Yeah.
we've all brought something positive out of it. There was a lot of negative, but there was some amazing reflection and positivities that have come out of it. And I just keep hanging on to that when people go really negative about. And I know people lost people and everything. I get that's really sad.
Yeah, that is sad,
But it was scary what we went through. And as a nation, we actually pulled together. And there was just so much that's come out of it that we've got to keep reminding ourselves, look what came out of it and where it forced us to be. How many industries would have said, absolutely never working from home, who have completely flipped and suddenly this is part of their culture.
And she said it wouldn't be well.
You know what the sad thing will be is if we don't learn from this, really, because if you go back to community spirit and camaraderie, and we've gone backwards as a nation, I think, in some ways, because we've become a bigger country. You don't have community spirit anymore. We're going to lose out if we don't learn from this, and we've worked together and we've embraced it, and we've done and achieved amazing things. What if we go back to where we were as a nation? Come on, it's time for us to learn from this.
Absolutely. Amen. There's so much positivity and so much sense spoken in that wonderful collection of brilliant minds from our part of the world who just happen to be women, which is phenomenal. That we have such an amazing depth of talent of real great thinkers and great business people in our part of the world. Amazing people. You heard from Leslie there from Lemon Business Solutions, Joanne from Active Financial Planners, Claire from Beyond Housing, Kate from Helen's Residential Limited, and Nikki from HR Today. And there'll be more from those conversations with Scott Makin this afternoon.
Tuesday, 8th of March, it's International Women's Day, and a day that's been recognised for more than a century now. And a lot of progress has been made in the fight for women's rights during that time. But there's still a long way to go. The murder, of course, of Sarah Everard by a serving police officer just last year reignited debates around women's safety. And recent figures show that the gender pay gap widened during the pandemic. So last week, our Sian met up with a group of women right across Teesside, County Durham and North Yorkshire, where they had a chat about what they are doing to break the bias in the workplace. Take a listen to Leslie from Lemon Business Solution Limited, Joanne from Active Financial Planners, Claire from Beyond Housing, Kate from Helen's Residential Limited, and Nikki from HR Today.
I think helping women's careers to thrive, for me, is about that balance. But I think we've also talked about positive, that sort of creativity and positivity that's been brought out by the pandemic. And I do think that helps women's careers. I think positive role models, I can't really say it enough. I think whether that's from, school children looking up to, young women, or young women looking up to women in business. I think the more that women in maybe different roles can act as those guiders, mentors, role models, I think women have a part to play.
Do you not think at the top of a business as well is important? If the people at the top have the right attitude towards equality, then it's going to happen, isn't it? But if they haven't, then you're really going to have a major problem, an uphill struggle to be able to have that happen. I mean, they let us have feedback. I think feedback and having something to say and feel valued is going to help, especially the women. In the past we didn't get anything to say. We weren't allowed to say anything. So I think that's absolutely amazing as well, that if you get a business like that will help you strive and become what you want to be in the future.
I totally agree, Joe. I think as all senior roles and businesses as we all have, it's our responsibility really to be that person that people can get advice from, provide the role model, and to make sure that our organisations are meritocracies, that people get things on their merits, the best person for the job, and also to call people out who are discriminatory or are not fair, or that odd comment, or that in the kitchen at lunchtime. It's our duty to call people out so that people, so that people know it's not acceptable.
Mirroring really what everyone said, and before I came here, my opinion on the matter was whoever can do the job properly is the person who should get the job, regardless of what gender they are or how they choose to live their life, really. And that's the important aspect for me. Now, I think if you've got someone heading a company who doesn't see it like that, you're fighting a losing battle, if I'm completely honest. You can't reason with unreasonable people. Therefore, you put yourself in an organisation that you believe you have a voice, you can get promoted or stay in the same position if you want to, whatever you choose, and you can do the job you want to do. I don't think you can necessarily, sadly, at this stage, fight against someone in a company who doesn't. You don't want to be in that company. Why would you want to be? Go out and choose a company really that values you.
Your voice is going to be missing as well. You're not heard. Diversification. We want everybody in there, male, female. Doesn't matter who they are, but everybody's different. I think we're going back to where we were before, aren't we? We were discussing.
It's true though, isn't it?
We've all got our merits.
I've got sons and a daughter, so I don't want my son to be at a loss. I want them both to be treated equally and both have the same chances.
And we're the role models at home for those people. The children we have, we're showing them the way, and it's about everybody else doing that as well, and just shouting about what opportunities they've got. And I think that's what's coming through now. We're doing that for everybody.
Well, that's brilliant mentality, isn't it, to be able to do that for them. So, back in the day we had, even when you were born, you were given as males, an action man, not literally, but, and women had maybe the kitchen sink and the, the pots and pans, that's what we were, that was what was stereotype is, but it's not like that anymore. So if you as parents can do that, I think that's fantastic.
I think we have moved a long way. You talked about even sort of in our sort of working life. I was having a conversation with my mum where she talked about in the 1960s and 70s when me and my sister were born, she gave up her career, but that was the norm thing, and she went back very quickly when we were still young, and that was absolutely the exception. That was exceptional,
frowned upon,
absolutely, and that was only in the mid 1970s. So if you think about that exponential leap from us at the start of our careers and now to where we are, actually I think that reflection is there's still an onward trajectory of improvement, but actually there's been a huge change, absolutely huge, and that's to be celebrated.
Nice listen, that, isn't it? You can hear more conversations as well from the group on a whole range of topics on BBC Sounds.
Scott Macon, BBC.